smiled faintly, already half asleep. "Was it all right coming back?" she murmured, just as he was about to slip his hand away and get something to eat. "It was fine," he told her. "It took a long time, but it was fine. Not too much traffic about. I stopped off at some services for a break." "You've eaten, then?" she asked, opening her eyes and rubbing at her face suddenly. "Well, a little something more wouldn't do any harm," he said, looking over at the racks of cooling cakes. "Oh, sure," she said, smiling. "Be my guest." He took a plate from the cupboard and fetched himself a large rock cake, blowing at the steam that poured out as he broke it open. "What about Kate?" she asked, turning round in her chair. "She's fine," he said. "I dropped her off at the station this morning. She sent me a text when she got home. She's fine." "She was okay with it all then, was she?" she said, looking up at him. "Yes," he said, "she was okay with it." "Oh, good," Eleanor said. Later, as she got into bed, she said, "So, will you tell me about it?" She sat up, the duvet held up to her chest, the pillows wedged behind her back and her hair pulled round to one side of her head. She looked up at him as he took his shirt off and folded it over the back of the chair. "What do you want to know?" he said. "Just what it was like," she replied. "Who was there? What happened?" "Well, they were all there, I think," he said. "All the family, grandchildren, a few neighbours. A few dozen altogether, I think," he said. He leant against the wardrobe to take off his shoes and socks, rubbing at the cracked skin across the back of his heels. "And was Tessa there?" she said. He looked up. "No, love," he said. "No, Tessa wasn't there." She pulled the duvet back from his side of the bed. "Come and tell me about it," she said. "I want to hear. Was it a nice service?" He unbuckled his belt, slid off his trousers, and draped them over the back of the chair. He swapped his pants for a pair of pyjama trousers from beneath the pillow, and he told her about Ivy's funeral. He told her that a lot of them, the immediate family, had met at Donald's beforehand, and that Donald's wife had overloaded them with sandwiches and cake, and that this was where Kate had first met them all. "I picked her up from the station," he said. "She seemed very quiet, but I think she coped with it well enough. People were saying she looked like her grandmother," he said, and Eleanor looked across at him with a doubtful expression. "No," she said, "I wouldn't say that. Does she? Do you think so?" He smoothed his thumb across her creased eyebrows. "A little," he said, "perhaps. It's only natural, isn't it?" She thought about it, shaking her head. He told her about the service, that the minister hadn't seemed to know Ivy at all, and had just talked in general terms about a long and full life, but that people hadn't seemed to mind. He told her that it had felt very warm in the church, and she smiled and said, "Well, at least some things changed then," and she started to close her eyes. He told her about the burial, about the corner of the cemetery which had trees along both sides and seemed to be well kept, that he'd spotted Great-Uncle James's grave nearby, and her father's, of course, and that Donald's had said her father's father's headstone was somewhere, but they hadn't been able to find it. He told her about the wake in the Crown Hotel, how good the food was and how people had kept buying him drinks. He didn't tell her about the question which had hung back on people's lips when they found out who he was, or that he'd felt like apologizing and explaining for her every time, even though people were too polite to mention it. "It's the travelling," he'd wanted to say. "It's such a long way, it would be too much for her." But he didn't say anything because people didn't ask. There was a gap in the conversation all day. No one saying, "Well, she could at least have," or "after all this time," or "I suppose she didn't feel she could," but it was a gap which was soon bridged by inquiries about work or Kate, or how he was enjoying his stay. She shuffled down into the bed, rearranging the pillows behind her, and turned her head onto his chest. He could feel the warmth of her breath. He leant down and kissed her hair. She spread her hand across his skin, tracing circles with each finger, the way she'd always liked to do, pressing lightly against each of his ribs, his belly button, the short, dotted scar above his waist. He told her about walking around Aberdeen the evening before the funeral, and how different things were now. The massive oil tanks and pipeworks ranged along the harbour front, the new shopping centre.